Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am back to my old school headphones, unfortunately, because for some reason there was an issue with the sound, and we have to have this live stream with Alex Krainer because this is like my new favorite guest. And I think many of you already know. You loved our first live stream, and I'm so pleased to welcome back Alex, who, let me read you from my little note, is a market analyst and researcher, also very, very savvy geopolitical expert, and an author of several books, which I'm not sure if they are still available or they have been removed or what kind of shenanigans Amazon pulled off. But I have attached all the links to Alex down below the description box, as well as his YouTube channel that I just came across today, believe me or not. So make sure to subscribe. And also you can find Alex on X, previously known as Twitter. I think you have Instagram as well, and you have your website, which is already down below this video. Thank you so much for joining me today and finding time for my audience, Alex.
Thank you, Anya. Very good to join you, and greetings to your audience.
So today, as I emailed Alex, I wanted to address the topics that I didn't have a chance in a previous live stream, and that was in regards to money, monetary systems, currencies, etc. But it's such a big topic that truly, when you follow the money, and money controls a lot of those nefarious activities that are taking place in the world, you cannot separate the geopolitical things from the monetary systems. But I want to start with something that is crossing those two areas. So I will say this, and this question that I will ask now, Alex, I will address the missionaries in Syria, but in fact, the same question might also apply to those missionaries who are fighting with Russia in Ukraine. So here is my question. Are those missionaries who fought in Syria were or are still being paid by the American government? And if so, who will continue to pay them for their service after Trump takes over the US presidency?
Well, it's very generous of you to call them missionaries. Did you mean to say mercenaries?
Sorry, mercenaries.
Okay.
Yes, you see, I already corrected the evil behavior. Exactly.
Yeah, you turned them into something almost nice. Almost. I don't know the answer to this question, Anya, because the things in Syria already got very complicated for the United States, even though it has not yet been yet been 4 weeks since the overthrow of the Bashar al-Assad regime. See, the United States is nominally allied with Turkey. Turkey is a member of NATO, so nominally allied with the United States. But at the same time, the United States is also allied with the Kurds in the north of Syria and in Iraq. And Kurds are regarded as a grave security threat to Turkey. And you see, the situation that was there before the overthrow of the Bashar al-Assad regime is that Syrian troops controlled the border between Turkey and Syria, including the Kurdish parts in the north and northeast of Syria. Well, the regime is gone now, and now it's the Kurdish forces that are controlling the border, and these Kurdish forces are controlled by the PKK, the Kurdistan's Workers' Party. And Kurdistan Workers' Party is also present in Turkey itself. And, they have their ultimate ambition is to carve off a state of their own, Kurdistan. So this is a huge problem for Turkey. And so today we already have Turkish forces attacking the Kurdish forces in Syria. These are two US allies that are fighting one against the other. And then we also have the HTS, the new and improved al-Nusra front, also fighting the Kurds in the north of Syria. Who is paying them? I don't really know, but I assume that it will be Qatar primarily. And Qatar is very, very closely allied with the UK, or at least nominally it is. You know, Qatar is the only nation that has two air bases at their disposal in the UK, where they are running a joint pilot trainings program with the Royal Air Force. And so I very often find that all the roads always lead back to London. And I think that what is happening now in Syria is becoming a bigger and bigger problem for the Western Empire, which I would call, not necessarily American empire, but let's call it an Anglo-Saxon or Anglo-American empire. On Sunday, so just a few days ago, at the end of last year, we had Mohammed al-Jolani, the supposed leader of HTS, gave an interview to Al Arabiya television network, the Saudi television network. And in that interview, he said a few very, very interesting and surprising things. So, okay, so this let's go back to the incursion by HTS into Syria, which started on 27 November, and Damascus fell, I think it was the 8th of December. The Western designs for Syria were to kick Russia out of Syria and to kick Iran out of Syria, to break the land bridge between Iran and Hezbollah in Lebanon. Well, in his interview a few days ago, al-Jolani said that, well, Iran is the major power in the region, and Syria cannot go on without having diplomatic relations with Iran. So clearly, it seems that HTS is going to seek constructive diplomatic relations with Iran, which then pretty much means that the idea of, taking a hostile stance and kicking Iran out of Syria is not on the cards. So, the Western designs are already beginning to fail. And then another statement that al-Jolani gave to Al Arabiya was that Syria has important strategic relationship with Russia. And he mentioned that all of Syrian weapons are Russian weapons. He mentioned that many of Syria's power plants are Russian-built power plants that depend on Russian expertise for their maintenance, and also that Syria and Russia have important cultural relationship. And so that, unlike what the Western powers want, HTS wants Russia to remain present in Syria. And they have requested Russians to keep to remain in Tartus and Latakia. Maybe I misspoke, but Tartus and their naval base in the it doesn't matter. And this is again contrary to the Western designs. But it is clearly compatible with the Turkish position, because the Turks also asked the Russians to stay in Syria. So it's very clear that both Russia and Iran are going to remain there, and their influence will remain present in Syria. And that the relationship with HTS and its new leadership is not going to be necessarily adversarial. And at the same time, it seems that it's the Turkish military and Turkish intelligence, that have the decisive influence over HTS. So thus far, it seems that it might end up being not the United States paying for these mercenaries, but maybe Qatar continuing to pay them, and maybe Iran, and maybe Russia. I don't know. That's difficult to say, but we have to also understand that Qatar is not necessarily a sovereign player in this whole mess. Qatar has to do what its Western partners, or better said, Western hegemons, ask of Qatar, because it would be too easy for the West to freeze Qatar's assets and to block all these payments and accounts and whatever you have. So it's going to be defined by the Western powers, but in practice they are already losing control. And given that the forces in Syria are largely mercenary forces, their loyalties can be bought. And I was very intrigued by the news that someone shared with me on a podcast, and the news was from some Arab channel, and I wasn't able to confirm it, but the news segment was saying that Hezbollah would begin compensating Palestinian families in Gaza, I believe, for the losses they incurred from the bombings by the Israelis. I thought that was very strange. In fact, I thought it was so strange that I didn't really believe it. I said, no, that this can't be right. And then this person sent me the video clip, which was in Arabic, so I couldn't verify it. But then when I dug a little bit, it wouldn't be the first time that Hezbollah is compensating Palestinian people and families for the losses they incurred from Israeli bombings. And I couldn't quite understand why or how or where does Qatar has the money, because apparently we're talking about something like $40,000 per family. That's a lot of money. So where does Hezbollah have that kind of money? Where is it coming from, and how is it happening? And so I reckon ultimately it has to be coming from Iran, probably. And then, apparently these are checks. But what I was intrigued with is because I know that one thing that Iranians specialize in is counterfeiting US dollar bills. Okay, so the reason why I'm pointing this out, and I'm speculating, I don't know that this is the case, and I doubt that anybody other than people involved could know for sure. But it's to have the loyalty of the mercenary forces now in Syria, you have to pay them. I think that the only acceptable means of payment today are US dollars. If the zone is flooded with counterfeit US dollars, this could render the dollar worthless, and people might lose trust in it, and they might not accept anymore to be paid in US dollars, and they might not even countenance receiving dollar payments from the US or from Qatar or anybody. So this would be a brilliant way of simply dissolving the glue that's holding all this together, which is the US dollar. And so I'm trying to make sense of this situation, but it seems to me that there are many, many ways that the Russian influence, the Iranian influence, and the Turkish influence could drive the agenda completely away from the Western objectives. And if the way I read the ultimate agenda that is driving Russian motivations and the Chinese motivations, and the Chinese have designated Iran as the pivot of the new security architecture in the Middle East. They want to pacify the region on a permanent basis, which means that they have to ultimately eliminate Israel in its current form. So what that means that Israel can no longer continue to be a theocratic Jewish state. It has to become a democracy which is in which the Jewish, Muslim, and Christian people enjoy absolutely equal rights. And that pretty much means that Israel will be no more, because this will not be acceptable to the current leadership in Israel and their current form of government. And so that means a dissolution of Israel. And I think that the hopes of the British and the Americans with this incursion into Syria was to remove security threats to Israel, and for Israel to seize land in Syria, to break the land bridge with Iran, between Iran and Lebanon, and to create a security buffer zone going all the way up to Damascus. And it seems to me that this is all already falling apart, and ultimately that it's going to create a quagmire for the West. The United States allegedly is already looking to send another 3,000 US soldiers to Syria. They are apparently building another 64th or 65th military base in the Middle East, in Konya. Yeah, in Konya. And it's not looking good. That's my very long answer to your question, but I think your question is so spot on, and there's so much to unpack in that I just laid out everything that I'm looking at the moment, and it's looking like a mess to me. Turkey is in charge, pretty much. Turkey apparently has very good relations still with Iran and Russia, contrary to what initially the incursion looked like a stab in the back to both to both Iran and Russia, but this is apparently not the case. And it looks like a gathering conflict between the United States and Turkey, first through the proxy of the Kurds, but ultimately maybe even in real ways, because the United States is going to have to make up their mind who they want to support in the region. And given that Turkey is the most powerful army in NATO, it might end up with Turkey leaving the NATO. And that, I think that would pretty much be the end of NATO as we know it, because, if the most powerful military in NATO leaves, there's not very much left. And, now NATO is scrambling to build up Poland and to build up Romania, but that is too little too late for NATO. So for sure it's going to be extremely interesting. Unfortunately, I believe that there's going to be a lot more bloodshed coming in Syria before it can be entirely pacified.
Thank you so much for this answer. And I had so many questions within this, what you just said. However, I want to stay on track with my questions that I had before, because we don't really have that much time. The end of NATO would be something to celebrate. This is not just my opinion. And as Poland is taking over from January 1st, the EU presidency, and already pulling just below the belt, low class behavior, no surprise, towards Viktor Orban and Hungary. And I'm not even surprised. It's, you know, we call it klasa polityczna. It's like the political class. There is nothing about class. There is nothing about class. It's actually, yeah, I don't want to use bad
The
words,
political gang.
yeah, it's just very disgusting, tasteless, not attractive, not interesting, not alluring, not everything actually negative. But I want to go into very simple questions now, Alex, about the money. And I know some of you from my audience will be like, yeah, come on. But I think sometimes it's really good to ask those questions because people don't know what to do. We really don't know what is coming. We can kind of assume what is coming. Most of us are not experts in finances. You are an expert, actually. But let me ask you this. You know, there is this saying everyone knows, cash is king, right? So do you think that people should still have cash set aside? And if so, in what currencies at this very moment?
I think absolutely yes, but cash is king until it's not. So it's a it's not a long-term investment which will ensure that you will be fine indefinitely. It should be regarded as a buffer, as a something that gives you time and maneuvering space. So everybody should pull some money in cash out of their banks in order to be able to cover emergency spending, in order to be able to have money on hand in case there's bank closures like we saw in Cyprus and in Greece. What was it, 15 years ago in 2008, 2009. But without exaggerating, because I think that the banking industry took over since the last financial crisis. What I mean by that there has been a covert banking coup in the West, in the United States and in Europe. So that happened in at least two general stages. One was in the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis, and the second one was at the opening of the 2020 pandemic. And people can look up Mario Draghi's op-ed in the Financial Times. I think it was published somewhere around or on 26th March 2020. And so Draghi was pretty much saying that the pandemic should set the world on a war path, that we should treat this like a war emergency, that we can no longer be bound by the bureaucratic red tape, meaning that the bankers have to take over, and that the democratic institutions should not be inhibiting the action of the bankers. So concretely, what this means is that the bankers now have the ability to flood the system with all the liquidity that is necessary for their institutions and their governing structures not to implode. Because by this time, okay, so when I was in the hedge fund industry, I remember that at least since 2015, we were expecting an imminent collapse of the banking system. And banks like Deutsche Bank were on the death watch since that time. So it was widely expected that there would be a banking failure, like Lehman Brothers in 2008, only much, much worse this time around. And then there was a point in time in 2019 when it looked like the system was about to implode. And the Federal Reserve in the United States launched an extensive repo program. And then, this repo program grew from about $40 billion to over $200 billion in October. But when the pandemic happened and the CARES Act was enacted, then they were able to bail out the financial system with more than $10 trillion. I think significantly more than $10 trillion. CARES Act was supposed to be 6.2 trillion. It was more than 10. $10 trillion, we throw away these trillions and quadrillions and everything. So, it almost doesn't mean anything, but it's $30,000 per man, woman, and child living in the United States. More than that. And, if you count only households or only people who are employed and pay the taxes, then it's well more than $50,000 per person. That's an amazing sum of money that was simply gifted to the banking system. Well, that means that ultimately cash is going to become worthless, because now with the banking coup, they have instituted permanent bailout facilities. So the banks will not be allowed to fail. And I say that for two reasons. First one is because we might not have similar events like we had in Cyprus and Greece in 2009, meaning that there won't be a banking failure. But the second reason why I say this is also what that means is that the purchasing power of money will gradually be so diluted that it's going to become worthless. I don't know over what period of time. That's unpredictable. But generally, what we're going to see is price inflation. So as purchasing power of the money declines, the prices of things that you need to buy, energy, gasoline, food, and so forth, goes up, and eventually your money becomes worthless. So generally, these types of inflation could span a period of 10 years. So over the next 10 years, you can expect your money to pretty much become close to worthless. And so that means that, yes, you should have some cash on hand in case of emergency, but you shouldn't expect that this cash will retain its value over the long period of time. So, it's not an investment, it's an expedient to give you resilience, maneuvering space, ability to cover emergency spending needs, or if you need to bribe a corrupt government bureaucrat at some point for some reason.
But
go ahead.
The question on that. So clearly we need some cash in currency of the country we are currently residing. That's obvious. But then let's say you have a little bit extra cash, you invest or you whatever, buy the property. I believe in gold, silver, I believe in the precious metals. But that's another story. What I'm trying to ask is also this. Besides the emergency spending or having the money for the bills for a certain amount of time, if people still have cash, would you say dollar is still the currency that you would keep some cash in, or you would rather choose Swiss francs, or because euro, I don't think it's a good idea. It's just my opinion. I'm not an expert. So what other currency would you say is an option? Just a little extra in case.
I think that the dollar will prove a lot more resilient than the euro. I think more resilient than the British pound as well. Swiss franc, if you're in Europe, I think it's a good idea to have some Swiss francs as well. Whether Swiss francs or US dollar are going to be a better option, I cannot say. If you ask me, I would say 2/3 Swiss franc, 1/3 US dollar.
Okay.
But I could be wrong. It's very difficult to know these things for sure. And then absolutely gold and silver. But with gold and silver, my preference is for coins, not not little
Bars,
bars,
no bars. Mhm.
because I think there are many bars out there circulating that is actually tungsten with a thin coating of gold on it. So you might be buying a forgery with the bars. And then with coins, I suppose you could also be buying a forgery. So I prefer coins that used to be in circulation once upon a time. So there are dealerships and shops that you might find, depending on where you live, that still sell the this the 20 franc the 20 Swiss franc cross, which is a coin that used to be in circulation about 100 years ago in Switzerland, and I think it weighs around 6.7 grams, something about that. Almost identical size coin was there's a French rooster. It's a small coin. And then there's the
What about
Austrian
Krugerrand? I think Philharmonic.
Krugerrands. They're a bit bigger. They're a bit bigger. The reason why I like the small ones is because if you put them in your wallet, in your change pouch, they don't look so much different from the euro, 10-cent euro coin.
That's my trick, Alex. When I travel, no one knows exactly.
Nobody
When you
knows.
travel,
Let's just keep that a secret between you and me, Anya.
but this is the problem. You see, I love gold and silver, and I think besides the aspect of this is God's money, I also look at the energy of the metal. Okay, it's a very symbolic metal. It's protection as well. Some people don't believe in this, but what I want to say is, for me, the biggest challenge with the precious metals is when you want to move from one country to another, it might be challenging how you take whatever you have. It might not be even that much gold, because as you know, as you cross the borders, only $10,000 is allowed to bring to another country. And that creates an issue. I have never been in my life in a situation in which I've moved countries, but I never been in the situation that I had that much gold. And I'm not now like that much gold, but what I'm trying to express is this. It's you have to take certain steps, and it can be overwhelming sometimes because you really don't know how the custom works, who you have to report this to, if they allow you to enter with the precious metals. And I think this can be a challenge. So I don't know, Alex, if you can advise people on this. I mean, I didn't even plan to ask you this question, just
I'm not
it's real
exactly
life.
sure. I think that normally the authorities in some country shouldn't have a problem with you entering the country with the gold. But the authorities of the country where you're exiting with the gold might have a problem. For example, I can buy gold in France, but I'm not allowed to take that gold outside of France. So I can have it here, but I shouldn't take it outside. So that's a bit of a problem. The 10,000 limit is also a bit of a problem, but you should be able to. Normally you should be able to do that, but you have to declare it. And then I don't know what happens when you declare it. Do they cause problems for you? But then again, you can transfer that much or more by wire, and if you have a bank account in a different country,
and then buy gold in another country.
Yeah. But I want to say this on account of all these things, is that sitting here at this moment in time, we could envision a lot of problems that we'll actually never have to face in reality. So I grew up in you grew up in Poland, I grew up in former Yugoslavia. We've both seen these crises. We've experienced high inflation, collapse of the currency, depression, in my case, war and everything. Life goes on. There's when real problems crop up, real solutions follow very closely, because people, don't just roll over and die. They work out solutions, and if it's in our culture in Croatia, people spend an inordinate amount of time sitting in cafes. And what they do there is they drink coffee or whatever else, they smoke cigarettes, and they talk. And when somebody has a problem, they talk about this problem, and somebody always knows somebody who knows some kind of a solution, whether it's legal or illegal or semi-legal, is then up to the people to decide what they want to do. And they work out something always. So, you want to be prepared in the sense that, sure, you should have some cash, and you should have some gold and silver, and you should probably have some tradable goods, like, even if you don't smoke, cigarettes are good to own. The cartons of cigarettes, coffee, packs of coffee. Then
alcohol that I don't drink, by the way, but alcohol.
I don't drink alcohol at all, but sometimes alcohol, liquor is also a very good tradable item to own. And then you want to have some reserves of food, the kind that doesn't spoil easily. And then you continue living your life. You don't have to prepare all the contingencies and all the solutions for the end of the world. People have lived through really, really tough times in places like Venezuela and Cuba and everywhere else. And it is very painful for some people. And there's no getting around that the crisis is coming and that it will be painful for some people. But generally, even in very, very drastic crises, people survive and life goes on. What is important is that the economy keeps producing the goods and services that people need to survive. Okay, so the farmers need to farm, the bakers need to bake bread, the shops need to stay open, the pharmacies need to stay open. If we have inflation and things get a lot more expensive, we still survive. And then after the crisis, there's again economic resurgence, and things are better again. But there's no room, there's no need to panic. And then what I have to say, this probably the most important thing of all that you can do to make sure that you're resilient is know people in your community, know your neighbors, know what they do, what you can do for them, what they can do for you. Because the day you might have a leaky roof, and I don't know, the Home Depots and these kinds of shops are boarded up and closed, you might be able to get a free solution, or almost a free solution, from your neighbors. And this is a reality. Sometimes a neighbor might be able to fix your car for free, or for a pack of coffee or a pack of cigarettes. So that's, I think, of all things, that's the most important one. And I pretty much know that this is what the people in authorities themselves know. And this is why they are really desperate to keep people from networking locally, and to make us dependent on the large supermarkets and government solutions.
Yes, thank you. And you just reminded me when I was growing up, in spite of all those challenges that people were facing with food and other things, we knew the neighbors. And I have to admit, throughout my life, because actually I was moving a lot too, you got this disconnection from people very much.
Yes.
You have experiences with people and you don't trust people as much as you used to. You rely on yourself most of the time because one, you don't feel you can trust, and two, you might be simply afraid that you will invest your energy or trust in someone and then you will lose it, not just financially, but as far as your energy and time. And I think that is the reason too that people are not interacting so much. Well, maybe I think in the Western cultures, but again, it depends. I think in Russia it also depends where you live, and it's different in Moscow, it's different in other places. But Alex, now I want to take us to a video. I'm so glad I came across this video today, which I knew about and I watched before. It was recorded several years ago by Vovan and Lexus, which, they can just pull it off, those two pranksters. So I came across the video with Christine Lagarde, who is the president of the European Central Bank. And I will be playing part of this video for everyone. I really hope the sound is good because I'm still trying to figure out when I share the screen that the video is a good quality. And then I will ask you my question after this. So I will mute both of us now and let's go to this video.
No, the problem is they don't want to be controlled. They don't want to.
Yeah, but you know what? Now we have in Europe this threshold above 1,000 euros, you cannot pay cash. If you do, you are on the gray market. So you take your risk. You get caught, you are fined, or you go in jail. But the digital euro is going to have a limited amount of control. There will be control. You're right. You're completely right. We are considering whether for very small amounts, anything that is around 300, 400 euros, we could have a mechanism where there is zero control. But that could be dangerous. The terrorist attacks on France back 10 years ago were entirely financed by those very small anonymous credit cards that you can recharge in total anonymity.
The question is now I think that it's a joke, like a joke, that the next currency will be firewoods for Europe.
Will be what?
Firewoods to hit.
Okay, I hope the sound was good. How was the sound, everyone? Because I didn't see. I hope the sound was good of the video, right? You could hear it.
I could hear it perfectly fine.
Great. I'm so glad because sometimes the sound breaks. So yes, here is my question. What will the actual use of this digital currency, CBDC, look like for people who only use cash? Will cash completely be eliminated? And what will happen to the older generation who does not understand electronics or digital forms of payment?
I think that cash will stay with us. I think if they try to eliminate it completely, it will be replaced by something else. Or people will invent their own money. This is something that most people maybe don't know because the corporate media never inform us about. But when people have difficulties conducting their transactions, they just invent a solution. And throughout the world, you have probably thousands of cases of local and regional currencies appearing if it's too difficult to transact ordinary purchases in life. So if they try to get too restrictive, if they try to eliminate cash, something else will replace it. That's for sure. There's another problem with going all electronic, and that is because I think it's going to be cannibalized by the corporations and banks, because what corporations are motivated with maximizing their profits, right? So if they can just have access to your bank account and then charge you for services as you go, or they have ways of selling you something but conditioning its functionality, like the car companies in the last few years started, you buy a car, but then if you want maybe your car is capable of accelerating from 0 to 100 in 4 seconds, but you have to pay for that. And if you don't pay, then it accelerates in 8 seconds. And then you have maybe heated seats, but you have to pay extra for that. And so now the car manufacturer kind of has a way of constantly pulling money from you for all these services that you think you paid for, but somewhere in the small print it says like, no, you didn't really, and you have to pay extra if you want to have them. And so what's going to happen is that businesses are going to be pursuing short-term profits more and more aggressively until people start boycotting, and then you're going to get economic depression, because we already see that the car sales in Europe have absolutely collapsed. The car manufacturers. Go ahead.
Can I say this? I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but I have to. You've seen those videos with massive amount of cars in Europe. You've seen them, right?
Yes.
I came across those videos. This is just absolutely insane.
Yeah.
All those very, very expensive cars waiting for never coming customers.
Yes.
And
yes.
I think it was in Germany. So I'm sorry, I'm sidetracking a little, but it's kind of topic like cars now. What's going to happen with those cars? What are they going to do with this? It's thousands and thousands.
I honestly have no idea. I think that they're going to have to destroy them eventually. But this is their own making, because I think that up to until about 20 or 30 years ago, these companies were all run by engineers who were working to try to make the most comfortable, reliable, desirable car for customers to buy. And customers bought cars in order to have a comfortable, reliable, good-looking car to drive around it. And then came the MBAs, the business people, who started inventing all kinds of ways to extract maximum amount of money from their customers. And so now you have really absurd situations. My brother lives in Germany, and he told me that when he drives to work, he sees in the slow lane, he sees rows and rows and rows of these new fancy cars like BMWs and Mercedes and the expensive cars. And then he asked a friend of his, it's like, what is the deal with all these people? Are they saving gas, or why are they all driving in the slow lane and they're going 60 kilometers an hour? And his friend told him, no, they're all...
We have to say, because many people don't know, if you go like on the highway in Germany, there is no speed limit, by the way. Just had to add this.
Yeah, and so what his friend told him is that these cars are all running in the safe mode. And my brother said, like, what do you mean in the safe mode? Well, if there's anything wrong whatsoever in the car, some light goes off, or the pressure in the tire is too low, or whatever, the car switches in the safe mode, and now you have to take it to the service. You can only go to the authorized service, and then they hook it onto computer, they do some kind of a magic, and then the lights go back off and everything is okay, and now you can drive your car normally. But apparently every time you do that, it's a few €100. And so now this becomes money extraction again. And I mean, we got off subject a little bit, but the point I was trying to make is that the corporations, the businesses, the participants in the economic game have the incentive to maximize their revenues and their profits. And I think that switching to only electronic money is going to open the floodgates to these tricks that are going to end up destroying the monetary system. The most egregious case I came across is a toll road in the United States, right? The private company operating the toll roads, encourage the people to switch to the direct debit model, right? So instead of stopping at the ramp every time to pay, $10, $20, whatever it is, you give them access to your credit, to your account, and they give you some kind of an electronic gizmo that reacts every time you pass, and they just take the money off of your account automatically. How convenient, because then you don't have to stop and pay cash, right? And so this is a real case. The company then, when they had enough clients with access to their bank accounts, they started experimenting with different pricing models. And then they created these dynamic pricing models, which charged you different rate depending on the time of the day, whether whether it's peak hours or not so peak hours, and the size of your vehicle, and all of these algorithms that calculated how much you owe. So this man who drove an RV that's called, that's a recreational vehicle, which is usually those campers that you can sleep in. The guy went with his wife with their RV. They drove 20 miles in one direction, and then they drove 20 miles in the other direction. And the company charged them more than $600 for this. And there's nothing they could do because it's all in the small print. It's all legit and legal. And they could. They simply were able to do this. And this is going to be happening more and more and more and more. And eventually it's going to do the same as always happens. People are going to be opting out of the system, and they're going to be inventing alternative ways of exchanging, whether it's going to be Bitcoin or gold and silver or some other currency, or if it's going to be packs of cigarettes or cans of tuna. I don't know, but people don't stand for this kind of abuse because it becomes impossible. You're always, theoretically, your bank account would always be at zero. And in fact, this is what would bring us to that WEF, you will owe nothing and you will be happy. That's where we're going.
Yes, eat the bugs. Eat the bugs. I'm laughing at this because I don't think this will be my experience at all. But since we mentioned here Bitcoin and other cryptos, I know this is, well, let me just ask the question. In my opinion, a lot of money that is laundered from human trafficking and other nefarious things end up in crypto. That's what I think. I might be wrong, but I don't think I am that much off here. So do you think, Alex, that government, I'm simply curious your thoughts on this. Do you think that government controls Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies? And let's just think and I'm not saying this is bad because, you can make great money and I would like to make great money, but I always think about this. What if one day they just reset this all and it all goes to zero? Is it possible they can do it? Just literally reset the whole thing. Because who has control over this? Who can, some issues with internet, some issues with electronics. We had situation not long time ago, a few months ago, actually, I don't remember exactly when it was, when all this hell broke loose and the planes were not flying and it was a mess. You remember? So that could be the same with crypto. So I know there are many people who believe nothing's going to happen, but I would like to know your thoughts on this. If you can please share with us.
I don't have a definite answer to this question. I think that the blockchain is a very important advancement with great potential for to serve humanity and to solve some of our problems that we have with the conventional banking system. I don't think that Bitcoin is controlled by any government, but some other cryptocurrencies are, and governments would like for us to switch to some kind of a, not government, but central bank controlled cryptocurrency. And that would 100% be a very, very bad thing for everybody else. It would be very good for the banks because they could control us. They could theoretically they would be able to control us very effectively. But in reality, I don't think that that's going to happen because human population is not a fixed immobile target. If they try to control us too extensively, if living becomes too difficult and transaction too restrictive, people always create gray markets and black markets. And there comes a point in time when they don't care whether they're breaking the law or not, because if the laws are unjust and the laws make your life difficult for no good reason, then people feel justified to break the law. And if there's a small number of people doing it, then the authorities could theoretically try to find these people and find them or arrest them, as Christine Lagarde mentioned in that video clip that you showed. But if it's a whole percentage of the population, then the government completely loses control of this. And so, examples like Argentina or Venezuela, you have close to half of the country's GDP conducted on black markets. This is not because governments are permissive, because they don't care or they allow the people to do it. It's because there's nothing they can do about it. And it's not that they're happy about it either, because for any transaction on the black market, the government collects zero taxes. And so this is very, very bad for the government. But, if they lose control, then they lose control. So the whole dystopian future that people associate with CBDCs is another one of those problems that we can envision it today, but we are unlikely to actually face that future in reality.
Okay. So before I ask you my last question, actually I had two more, but I would like to end in a few minutes. So Alex, this whole system, monetary system, in my opinion, again, I just say it, I'm not an expert, but as a regular person watching the current situation, the reality, well, actually the history of the humankind, they control humanity using the money system. They control people using the money system. So I wonder, will we ever have this time that we will completely withdraw from any form of slavery, because it is a form of slavery. In my opinion, it has been sold to us in a very nice packaging that we cannot resist, that this defines us, that we are what we have, we are what we drive, we are what we wear, we are where we live. You know what I'm talking about. And I think that form of slavery is, to many people, still so invisible, like they don't even recognize this, that they are slaves in this system. Because everything kind of goes around if you have this money or if you don't have this money, and what is your value in the society if you don't, and who you are if you do. Do you think we will be ever able to break this form of slavery completely?
I think that it's conceivable that we will, but we will have to want it, and we will have to create it ourselves. I think that it is very important for all of us to learn what money is, how it operates, what it represents, how it shapes our day-to-day behavior and our habits and our culture and all of these things, and to understand the spectacular ways in which our living experience is diminished by working for money, and then discovering that money limits what you can do, how you can live. It almost defines your choices in life. We are extraordinarily productive. Humanity is, in general. We just talked about these thousands and thousands of unsold cars sitting in parking lots in Germany and Japan and United States. So we produce all this wealth, but and it's everywhere, right? Everywhere you look, you see beautiful houses, beautiful apartment buildings, fancy cars, yachts, planes, trains, helicopters, expensive wines and champagne and caviar and beautiful paintings and sculptures and all of these things. But for some reason, most of us cannot afford many of these things. Why is that? So the abundance is out there and we can see it, but somehow it's out of reach for us. And the reason is because the only way you can have those things if you have the money to pay for them. And so we slave away our lives to earn this money in order to pay for these things. And that becomes almost what defines our lives, how we choose to be, how we choose to live, how we choose to relate to others. And if you go to places like the United States or the New World, the Anglosphere, it's almost like life is completely subordinated to the pursuit of success. People are obsessed with succeeding, right? Because success means that now you have access to all these things that you would otherwise want, and everybody else doesn't. So you're successful while other people aren't. But I think that there's a much better way to relate to one another, and I think you can glimpse it. Somebody posted a beautiful thread on X some weeks ago, or maybe even months ago, where they went and they interviewed people in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and they asked them, what's important in life? What do you regret? And what do you wish you would have done differently? And every last one of them said that they regretted that their biggest regret in life is running after the money too much, spending too much of their life and their energy pursuing money and success. And their biggest regret is, not spending enough time with their parents, with their friends, with their children, and that if they could redo, they would give a lot more of their time and energy to human relationships, and maybe take it easy on the professional money acquisition side and work and business and all these things. And so I think that tells us that what we really value in life are human relationships, human warmth, the closeness of our friends and family, and spending time with our children, spending time with our parents, things like this, eating good food, sharing the table, the dinner table with others, spending time together, talking, laughing, and things like this. So, we're just going to have to make choices to do more of what we enjoy, of what makes the actual quality of life, and to maybe move away from those things that, as you say, are
Limit us.
means of
Limit us.
enslavement.
Yeah.
And I think that you can do this once you're aware of what happens. But the money system that we have is creating the incentives that are drawing us in the wrong direction. So I think it's extremely important that we understand what the money system is, how it works, and how it should work. Because, there's nothing that should prevent us from engineering a monetary system that would actually be conducive to us having beautiful quality lives, rather than forcing us into a rat race. With this, we being here on Earth is our birthright. We don't owe any earthly authority subservience and submission if their leadership is detrimental to us, right? Subservience must be voluntary. So I can be subservient to somebody if I think that their leadership is conducive to a better life for me. Like if you imagine that you're a sailor on a ship, and there's a captain on the ship, and so for the ship to sail safely, you have to do what you have to do, but you do that only so long as you think that that captain is a constructive, well-meaning, competent person, right? If you think that he's a madman who's going to end up sinking the ship, then you change. You change. You don't even board that ship. You find an alternative. And anyway, I think Anya, that we must do this, because I think we are the first generation in history of mankind who has an opportunity to do that, because we have the amount of knowledge and information and interaction that we can have is absolutely enormous compared to what any generation before us had. So learning these things and envisioning a better life is what we're going to leave to future generations. And I think we have no excuse, because if we're passive, if we're subservient to the mad authorities that rule over us, then we are, we're dooming our children and their children.
Thank you, Alex. And I think here, first and foremost, we are not living in true to ourselves, to our soul. So we are not honest with ourselves. And when we are not honest with ourselves, it creates karma, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's always a price to pay in the end.
Yeah. And there is also another aspect here. As I am studying more and more lately, this is very loaded topic. I don't want to address it here now, but I want to talk about, before we end this, I just want to say one thing. This all comes down to the free energy, because this is something that has existed already on this plane and has been in used for quite some time and has been destroyed. And when you look at individuals, not just like Tesla, like Nikola Tesla, but there were others who we don't know the names because they don't want us to know their names. This all comes down that this whole system operates on paying for something that's supposed to be for free. And we're supposed to have this free energy. And when we get to that point, when this is revealed, when we access that, I think everything will completely shift, because it just, you cannot sustain the old paradigm anymore. You just can't. It's going to crash. So it's really all about hiding that what is our, like our, rights to have the access to free energy. Why architecture was designed certain way, why buildings were certain way, why the music creates certain frequency, what it taps into your soul that makes you do certain things afterwards is really all connected. So they have to distort it. They have to distort the energy, they have to distort the creativity, they have to distort the mindset, shift the focus, and manipulate where your attention goes and what you're thinking, and make you question things so you think you are crazy and they are normal, actually.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you so much, Alex. That's all for today. I hope everyone is okay with my last statements, because they think I lost my marbles sometimes. But
well, Anya, to be fair, we tackled subjects that I think we could talk for 10 hours, for 1,000 hours about, and they're very important subjects. So, it's hard to be completely articulate and completely, how do you call it? It's hard to come full circle on these things in a short conversation, but I think that nevertheless it's extremely important to have these conversations. So I thank you for the invite, and we continue these conversations. Happy New Year to everyone.
Thank you so much, Alex. Thank you everyone for watching, for your donations, for hitting the like. And if you want to follow Alex Krainer and support him, all the links are down below as well, so make sure to check it out. And that's it. Until next video. And Alex, will you come back for the historical conversation? Because someone left the comment under our first live stream, which actually I agree with this. Someone asked if you would explain the situation in Yugoslavia and what happened to the country, which I'm actually interested in this too.
Yes, absolutely.
Would you explain one day? Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
Of course.
Perfect. So that's coming, everyone. Something to look forward, and we see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Anya. Bye-bye.